From the heart of the city too busy to hate. A progressive voice making too much sense for corporate media's comfort. This is The Ron Show, where we the people come first. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
Hello, and thank you for listening. Weekdays, 8 a.m., 4 p.m. on Georgia Now, 11 p.m. Progressive Voice of You. Tune in or wherever you podcast. In a few different theaters, we are seeing what ineffectiveness in government looks like. And it's all because of Republican control and their activist zeal to try and fix things that don't even need fixing. Whether it's the Iran nuclear kerfuffle, I wouldn't call what we have this memorandum to be much of a deal. It's a steal for Iran. Not so much for us, not so much for global peace. The Israelis, obviously Netanyahu's not even happy that there is this memorandum of understanding because he has had his military do just about everything they can in Lebanon to undo the parameters of the deal that Iran set that we agreed to. So the Iran, put that on one stage. It's like a three-stage or three-ring circus. Yes, we'll go with that. It's like a three-ring circus. You got the Iran situation in one ring. You have this reflecting pool. I can't believe we're fixating on this, but the reflecting pool fix, not fix, that it is like it so epitomizes MAGA and the Trump era of American governance. You just could not come up with, I don't think, a better assimilation of what the Trump era of governance is. And then here in Atlanta, under the Gold Dome, special session called into order. Governor Kemp calling that special session into order because there was a July 1st deadline to eliminate QR codes from printed ballots that come right out of the printer underneath the screen that we voted on. We don't have any idea what the QR codes. We don't. I mean, there is a little rundown on the printed ballot that tells us what we voted, and that looks right, but we don't know that I don't distrust it. That's just me. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't distrust this thing. I think that there are checks and balances. We've seen exhaustive checks and balances, actually. And as much as I can quibble with the way the setup is, how much it cost, who won the contracting, et cetera, and so on, I don't question the outcome. And you know who else doesn't question the outcome? Republicans who win primary elections don't question those outcomes. They only question the outcomes when it comes down to general elections, and then it's general elections that they lose, and only those. So we have those three rings, right? The Iran situation, the reflecting pool in D.C., and Republicans' inability to address a state election system that they have controlled for the better part of the last 2 decades. And if I'm being honest, I don't have a problem with the system. The only problem I've had with the way Raffensperger, and before Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State was a fellow by the name of, it says here it was Brian Kemp. The only problem I have with those two in charge of the Secretary of State's office and overseeing elections is that they were just unilaterally whacking people off the voter rolls if they didn't participate for a couple of election cycles, creating something of an onerous burden for the casual voter who's not always compelled to go vote. Which brings me, by the way, to one Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson if he were to live in the state of Georgia. Those two so disenfranchised now with the Republican Party that they announced yesterday that they're no longer Republicans. So who do they go and vote for? I actually have a solution for them. We're not going to agree much on policy or ideology, obviously, but I actually think that there's a way to give them a political theater or a party that might be more in line with what they believe, but that also cures all that's wrong with the way we populate our legislatures. First thing I want to go with is the election fix, I'm using air quotes there, here in Georgia. All of this stems from Donald Trump not winning the 2020 presidential election. That's it. That's really it. Here we are in 2026, and we're still having to deal with the headaches that stem from Donald Trump not winning the 2020 presidential election. Caleb Groves and David Wickert reporting for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Georgians will have to wait at least one more day to see how votes will be counted this fall and beyond. There had been an effort, by the way, to put this whole QR code deadline off till 2028. Just, Republicans, again, just kicking the can down the road. A mess of their own making and no fix for it. A lot like, scrapping an Iran nuclear deal in 2018 and thinking, we can do better. 8 years later, have you done better? It's like trying to whittle away at the Affordable Care Act because it's not good. It's not our idea. It actually was your idea. It was the Heritage Foundation. It's like wanting to get rid of Obamacare, promising you're going to have something better, as Trump did back in 2015 when campaigning for president, and then 11 years later, we still have nothing better. Back to David Wickard and Caleb Groves reporting. Georgia lawmakers Monday convened for the fourth day of a special session, but took no action on a bill that would mandate hand recounts of the state's top races while delaying the end of QR code vote counting until 2028. Meanwhile, partisans continue to spar over dozens of Republican bills that would allow voters to lower property taxes for homeowners by raising sales taxes on everyone. Oh yeah, that too. The current Republican plan mandates hand recounts of the top two races on the ticket after each election, which prompted criticism from activists, Democratic lawmakers, and local election officials on Monday. The proposal would delay a July 1st deadline, banning the use of QR codes to count votes. That's good. The legislature neglected to address the vote counting problem during a 40-day legislative session earlier this year. State Senator Kim Jackson from Stone Mountain.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today in opposition to this bill for a few reasons, but I want to start out by addressing the amendment that was just placed on our desk.
The hand recount one.
I want to be clear about what's happening in that amendment. The author and the people who are co-sponsoring this have determined that all 159 counties, all municipalities must do a hand recount of every single ballot cast in the top two races in every single election. Let's put that in perspective. You're talking about when we say have an election for a governor. Fulton County, hundreds of thousands of votes are cast, and in order for this, if this amendment were to pass, Fulton County will have to hire a ton of people to come in and hand count every ballot for both the Senate, U.S. Senate race and the gubernatorial race. And it's not just Fulton County. You all always talk about Fulton County. We're always waiting on Fulton County to get their stuff together. Well, now you are ensuring that Fulton County cannot certify their election results for days. A party that talks about being a conservative party is adding an incredible amount of expense on top of every single county by requiring them to have to hand count
every county
these ballots.
Yep.
And what's more, there are no parameters in this amendment. It just says that if the hand count does not match essentially the original count, so if the hand count is off by one vote,
listen to this,
then we negate all the machine counts. If it's off by 100 votes, there's no parameters. There are no parameters. So what if by chance the humans get it wrong and they miscount substantially? We don't have any checks and balances. There's no call for a second recount to confirm. It's just messy.
Yep.
And it throws our election process into grave uncertainty, which I actually think may be the point.
Or chaos.
Asking counties to bear the burden, both the financial and the time, but also simply asking people to come regardless of the importance of that election, which all elections are important, but regardless of all the circumstances around it, they have to hand count, is an absurd proposition. If we say that we are committed to getting election results quickly and efficiently.
That part.
So I want to be clear, that's why the minority party will be voting no against hand recounts, because it's just not practical to do that for every single election without making sure that we provide additional provisions for all of our counties to make that happen. That's number one. But number two, I want to talk to the bigger bill and the bigger issue of why we're here. To be clear, this bill could have had 55 votes on the board, probably, or at least close to that, if we had simply stuck to the governor's proclamation. The proclamation tells us to come here during a special session and address the QR code matter. That is dealt with in 3 lines. Lines 68, 69, and 70. That takes care of our QR code issue. That's what we were called here to do. And I am quite clear that the minority party would have been happy to vote for a clean bill that did simply just that. But instead, the Republican Party, the majority party, has gone into a back room and put together a bill that has no consultation from the minority party. And in fact, they didn't even talk amongst one another. Why is it taking us so long to get to a vote today? Because 5 men in a back room wrote a bill that they didn't even bother to talk to all of their own colleagues about.
That part.
The own Republican Party wasn't on the same page about this bill. But we had a sham of a process where 5 men went to a back room, wrote up a bill that they all agreed upon, sent it to a committee, called it a committee process, but it was a sham of a committee because we were allowed to make no amendments whatsoever, and then brought it to the floor with the promise that amendments would be possible again, and yet once again showed their hand, offer an amendment, and immediately resolve debate so that we could not offer any real amendments. This entire process has shown us that the majority party has no interest whatsoever in making sure that the voices of people who are not Republicans are heard.
That's right.
And to be clear, we live now in a state where we are blue and red, which often makes purple. We are a purple state where there are Democrats and Republicans who come together to make an incredible amount of diversity in this state. And what you all have done is created a piece of legislation that casts out the votes of people who are blue.
Of course.
You've created a process where how we vote in the future will be determined by only one party.
Yep.
And then all parties will come in and vote on those machines. You've created a process, in fact, where you have created an open season for any conspiracy theorist that's out there. Every single election denier that is out there that is just waiting will already have baked into the process a reason to distrust, because they know that you all created a process where voices were not included. The community is not included in this, and the minority party is not included in this process.
That's the idea.
Now, if we were having a real debate, you all would come back and say, well, don't worry, the legislature still gets to decide. No, the only thing that we get to decide is whether or not we're going to provide the money for it or not.
That's right.
How the elections are created, the systems that we pick, all of that is going to be selected by the majority party's representatives.
And on the money part, Brad Raffensperger pointed out in a letter that that's all he's been asking for, the money to implement a lot of the changes that the GOP wants to make. In fact, we'll get to that letter here in just a minute. I want to take a quick break. It's The Ron Show on Georgia Now, Progressive Voices via TuneIn or wherever you podcast. You know, it's not very often when you see Georgia Democrats attaboying and backpacking the Secretary of State, who happens to be a Republican by the name of Brad Raffensperger. But there they are on social media. This from the Twitter X Georgia Senate Democrats account. Brad Raffensperger just provided the evidence for what we've been saying all along. Republicans manufactured this QR code crisis. In a letter to all state lawmakers, the Secretary of State exposed over a year of foot-dragging by Republican leaders. They had 18 months, over 10 meetings, and multiple budget requests to fix the QR code mandate. They created an SB 189. Instead, they ignored warnings and are now wasting taxpayer dollars on an emergency special session to scramble for a last-minute fix. They also, by the way, the Georgia Senate Democrats called out Rick Jackson, the gubernatorial nominee. Where's the top of the Republican ticket in all of this? Completely silent while his party spirals into chaos. Georgia taxpayers shouldn't have to pay the price for Republican incompetence. And by the way, it's like $200,000 a day that this special session goes on. So we're heading into $1 million nothing burger, right? So the Secretary of State's office did send a letter, and they also provided on social media like a nice little graphic. I think this is AI generated too, by the way. We got to talk about AI generated graphics. There's a whole lot of that I'm seeing. On the left and on the right. And if we're going to sit here and hand-wring about data centers, maybe we should look at, I don't know, the fact that like somebody, a graphic artist who could have a Canva account that might charge you a few bucks, could make that without nearly the amount of data center necessity as the AI-created graphics. Anyway, Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger writing in a letter from his office, SB 189, an election funding timeline, and then provides a whole timeline going back to October 25th of 2024 Secretary of State meets with Senate Budget and Research Office Director Brent Church to present budget requests for the fiscal year 25 and 26 budgets. Presentation and budget requests include breakdowns involving SB 189 costs. Fast forward to January 2025. Secretary of State and staff met with Chairman Sam Watson to discuss proposals to comply with SB 189. Follow-up email sent to Chairman Watson on January 21st, 2025 includes detailed summary on the QR code project. February 12th, 2025, Secretary Raffensperger presents amended FY25 budget to Senate Appropriations Subcommittee on Government Operations. Presentation includes SB 189 compliance options. There's a video link. All of this to say that essentially there's a cost that comes with changing over the computer equipment, the election software, yada, 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 to eliminate the QR codes from the ballots and put other systems in place. As you heard Senator Kim Jackson talking about, there's also the human cost. And that's, by the way, not something that's going to be covered in the Georgia Secretary of State's elections office budget. But there again, the counties are going to go, how are we supposed to pay for that? Remember as well, by the way, this is the same state legislature called into a special session that also wanted to try and ramrod through another property tax. They've been trying that again. They tried that again yesterday. Another property tax cut at the state level that's not theirs to cut. I mean, they obviously have the means and the will to do it, but they're doing that by raiding the municipal and county government's cookie jars by saying, we're going to eliminate the property taxes that you rely on and then leave it up to you to figure out how you're going to make up that shortfall. And oh, by the way, you need to hire extra election workers to do these manual hand recounts that we're mandating as well. Man, if I were a county commissioner or a city councilman or a mayor, I'd be like, what the are you guys doing? Get out of our budget. Back to Caleb Groves, David Wicker to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Since this special session convened Wednesday, more than 90 bills have been introduced to authorize local property tax referendums, most of them in the House. Yeah, they want to cut property taxes and then have the local municipalities, the counties or cities figure out, that money's going to go away. You're going to have to figure out how to make up that shortfall. It's going to be property taxes for sales taxes. We all know this. And it's going to leave those municipalities, those counties, with one of two options. Either finding another funding source. It's going to have to be sales taxes. They don't have any. What are you going to do? Raise the water bill? I mean, everybody's going to have to pay the price for the select of us in the state of Georgia that own property. Unless, again, I've offered this as, amendment fodder here. If Republicans really want to be serious about a property tax cut, well, fine. Write it in to your legislation that tenants see a decrease in their rent that is comparable to the property tax savings that their landlord gets. They'll never do that. They won't. But if you want every Georgian to benefit from a property tax cut, then at least do that, because the folks that are renting who may not see that rent decrease at all. I mean, most landlords aren't going to pass that savings on, right? I mean, that's, smart business. If you're able to save some money, you're able to save some money. You're not going to lower your rent. But if you want everyone to benefit from that property tax cut, mandate that. They won't do that. They won't. So what's going to happen is the renter isn't going to see a decrease in their rent. They're going to see an increase in their sales tax when they go to buy gas, when they go to get groceries, when they go to pay for their medicines at the pharmacy. They're going to see an increase in costs in an era of affordability. I love the way Democrats are framing this, by the way. Republicans are like, Democrats trying to keep you from paying lower property taxes. Well, that's only talking to like 60% of the state. What about the other 40%, the 35% or so who rent in the home that they live in? We're talking about a new tax. You're talking about new taxation. That's the way Democrats are framing this, and it's pitch perfect. But see, that's just it. That amendment I'm talking about, Republicans are now taking that off the table altogether because the property tax cut would only go to your landlord's primary residence. It wouldn't go to the residence that, that he or she is renting to you. Let me read this. If voters approved, counties and cities across Georgia would raise sales taxes, that's a new tax, by a penny, with the proceeds offsetting property taxes, but only on taxpayers' primary residences. In Metro Atlanta, bills have been introduced to authorize referendums in Gwinnett, Cherokee, Forsyth, and Fayette counties. Republicans say the votes would grant needed relief for people struggling to keep up with rising property tax bills. Listen, I make no qualms about property tax bills going up. The cost of maintaining the city, the town you live in, the county you live in, they're going up. Everything, the cost of everything is going up. I think, going to war unnecessarily and, rising the price of gas unnecessarily again, that plays a large role in that. But of all the people that are getting relief in this affordability era, this affordability crisis, we're going to go just to property owners with a little bit of relief and on the backs of all consumers? Representative Ruo Roman quoted in this piece from the AJC, "We should not be adding any new taxes during an affordability crisis." Pitch perfect. The bills require 2/3 majorities in both chambers and cannot pass without substantial Democratic support, which means it won't happen. And this is all posturing anyway. Republicans know it won't happen. And they can't dilute it down. They can't make it any prettier than the ugliness that it already is to get enough Democratic support. This is all just about posturing. They're trying to create or craft a message for the November elections. Democrats weren't for lowering your taxes. No, Democrats weren't for creating new taxes by giving the more well-off in the state a tax break in an affordability crisis, while the rest of us paid the price for carrying that burden for them. All right, that's one ring of the three-ring circus. We'll get to the other two next. It's The Ron Show, Georgia Now, Progressive Voice via TuneIn, wherever you podcast.
This is The Ron Show.
Heard weekdays, 8 a.m., 4 p.m. on Georgia Now, 11 p.m. Progressive Voices via TuneIn, or wherever you podcast. Donald Trump yesterday went on one of, by his measures, even one of the more deranged, lunacy-filled tirades, and this all has to do with the reflecting pool. The reflecting pool before the Washington Monument in our nation's capital, between the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial. From James Tate on the Twitter X platform. He wrote this a few days ago. 2 days ago. Step 1, remove the filters in a reflecting pool because Obama put them in. Step 2, give your criminal neighbor who runs, quote, green water services, a $20 million no-bid contract to paint the pool. Step 3, fill the pool with water from the Potomac River, the phosphates from which cause algae bloom. Step 4, freshly sealed pool and extreme heat result in a super scum event. Step 5, direct National Park Service to dump hydrogen peroxide into the pool, which causes the paint to peel. Okay, he's got these numbers wrong. Step 6, deploy U.S. National Guard to stop people from taking photos of the swamp is a perfect metaphor for this administration. And step 7, blame someone else. Enter Donald John Trump yesterday in the Oval Office when questioned about the reflecting pool, which to me is just the perfect metaphor for this presidency.
Are the contractors who did the initial work with the reflecting pool, are they to blame for the current conditions?
Nah.
Or is it the vandals that you mentioned?
You know, we have I think 290, 300 foot slit right through it, probably a box cutter or a knife of some kind. Or we had people lifting up the basic, but it's not a lot of damage, but we'll probably have to let the water out and refix it. They went in there with a knife. I was just told by the people over at Parks, they have 5 people are arrested and 5 people are under investigation right now. And it's a sad thing. In addition to that, we put brand new, beautiful grass all around. They put these massive letters on the grass.
Numbers.
You probably know about that, right?
Yeah, 8647.
And they said 8647. They probably got that from the dirty cop, Comey. You know he's a dirty cop, don't you?
Seashells.
Dirty cop. He's a crooked guy. They destroyed the grass. So.
Wait, we're worried about the grass? Have you looked at the South Lawn just outside your window, sir? Somebody in that room, please ask, sir, have you seen the South Lawn since your big birthday party? I mean, the only thing missing there is an imprint from the bouncy house at your birthday party. I mean, if we're going to sit here and hand-wring about ruined grass, the South Lawn has been destroyed.
That's a big thing, but we're going to get it back very soon.
National Guard and police have been on all over the mall. How would these vandals have gotten so close to do something like that?
Valid question.
Do you have any proof of this?
We didn't have a lot of them then. Who would think that somebody would go into a pool and take a knife and start cutting it?
But do you have proof of that?
Yeah,
No.
we have
You have
proof.
photos or videos?
Well, let's put it this way. When you have a 350, I think it's 350, not 250,
There's no
a 350-foot slit from one end to the other, you think that's proof?
Madness.
You think that's
The
proof?
reporters have been down there today looking for that slit that you mentioned, and there's no evidence of
all
it.
you'd have to do is see the Parks Department. They'll show it to you. See the secretary. But I
What?
saw it.
Who?
They cut it. They cut it very violently. The same thing with the floor. They cut it, and then they lifted it. They pulled it, and that's what it is.
Sorry, brother. This is some Loch Ness. I just who has seen this creature? Ron Filipowski from Midas Touch on Twitter X. Sorry. So an Antifa scuba diver with a box cutter snuck into the reflecting pool to cut a 300-foot section out while evading all cameras and law enforcement in order to sabotage Trump. Do I have that right?
And, we've done over 50 monuments. Number one, we start with this is now a safe city. It's as safe a city as you're going to get in the country. And when I came here, it was a very dangerous city. And number two, what we did is the beautification with the parks and the grass and everything, removal of all the tents.
Except the South Lawn.
And this is like a different place. One of the things we did is over 50 fountains and statues, most of which were in horrible shape. All of them were bad, but some were just absolutely horrible. Graffiti, you couldn't even see the stone. They've all been fixed. We also fixed the reflecting pool. In fact, if you go over there right now, it looks very good. It's up. Somebody said fertilizer in the water. If you put fertilizer in the water, you get algae.
The only fertilizer in D.C. right now is what's emanating from that man's mouth. What an utter load of bullshit.
But somebody said they might have put fertilizer. They did something to create the algae, but that doesn't matter because that's been purified. It's dead. Laying at the bottom, they're taking it out. They vacuum it out. They vacuum it very carefully out. And it'll be back to health pretty soon. We're going to have to let the water out to fix there's two little areas, very little areas where they were cut. And we'll fix that, but it's not leaking or anything. It's got a base underneath.
Part of what's curious about this situation is we stood here with you in April when you first revealed the plans.
I said what?
In April, you showed us pictures of what you were going to do at the pool, and you said you had a guy who was going to do it in a week for about $1 million. $1
million.
Well,
it's been 2 months and $16.5 million.
Loving the pushback.
Barack Hussein Obama, have you ever heard of him?
What?
He spent 2 years and over $100 million on trying to fix it. You know what happened to it? Never even opened.
Correct.
He took the water from the river. You know
Wait,
about that,
the reflecting pool was closed?
It turned out to be putrid, and it destroyed the whole thing. Spent over $100 million.
That's what you
Him
did.
and Biden together spent $147 million. You know what happened? Never opened. You don't mention that.
The reflecting pool wasn't
We
closed.
spent about 10. Much of the money we spent are park workers. They're there whether they do this or not, as you know. They work in the park, and they're very good workers. They did a great job. So they were going to spend $300 to $400 million. You know that, and it was going to take 4 years. I spent about 6-7 weeks, and I spent probably in terms of outside, probably $10 million, around 10 million. They say 16, but a lot of that is workers that work for the same thing. So they were going to spend $400 million. I spent 10. They were going to spend 4 years. I spent 2 months, maybe.
Where is he getting these numbers from?
And I have a better product. Now, I can't help it if somebody goes in with a knife and starts hacking it up. And we also have pictures of it. We have
Can you
pictures.
release the photos? We've been
At the
asking
right
for
time,
that.
you'll see it. You'll see it in court. You'll see it in court. But all you have to do is call the Parks Department.
Yeah. Can't wait for
call
this
the
in court.
Department of Interior, and I don't know if their lawyers will allow you to speak to them because you write fake news.
What an out.
Call the Interior Department, and I understand they've arrested 5 people, and they have another 5 people that are under investigation. Here's the bottom line: we made so much progress in this city. People don't even recognize it. By the way,
the 5 people arrested, I think one was taking a picture, another was just picking up a floating paint chip in the water. And by the way, if you grab a paint chip, it's 10 years in prison. But if you want to take a podium or other memorabilia from the Capitol on January 6th back in 2021, that's worth a pardon? Huh. Can I just tell you, by the way, here's the thing. I reached out to someone who's like ultra MAGA, who's still kind of a smart person. And I said, listen, totally off the record, this Trump experiment is a steaming, floating barge of excrement. Surely you're looking ahead to who will reclaim your party and put it right in 2028 by now. Electing the loudest naysayers is one thing. Doubling down without experts for guardrails is an unmitigated disaster. Even MTG is pulling it together, bro. You're smart. At least give me some signal. You're a smart. Those of us outside the MAGA bubble need signs. Y'all are going to get your minds and motives correct soon. Here was the response that this ultra MAGA gave me. I voted for Rubio in 2016. I hope he's the next guy up. That is, for the twofold answer is 2016, I didn't vote for Donald Trump until he did. But also, that's who I want to run in 2020. I mean, at least we can say, oh, okay, at least now MAGA is starting to realize this was an utter disaster. And speaking of MAGA, Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene hopping off the train next. So Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, they are both saying that they are no longer Republicans. Here's Tucker.
I would not support the Republican Party. There's no chance I would support the Republican Party. I'm not going to support the Democratic Party. I don't know what I'm going to do. But at this point, how could I or any American voter support a political party that's not loyal to the United States, that puts the interests of a foreign country above those of its own citizens? It's not possible to vote for people like that, and I'm not going to. And I think I've voted Republican my entire life. I worked at Fox News, CNN, right. MSNBC. I've been a consistent defender for 35 years of the Republican Party. I mean, very consistent defender. But there's no defending this because it's immoral, and it's exactly the opposite of what a political party in a democracy is charged with doing, which is representing its own voters, its own citizens, its own nation. And they're not doing that. So, no, I'm out. And if I'm out, then I think a lot of other people are out.
That's from the Can't Be Censored podcast, by the way. Marjorie Taylor Greene sharing that to social media platforms and writing herself. Tucker's not the only one who is done supporting the Republican Party. There's a lot of us that are absolutely fed up and will not support a party that betrays its voters and country. That does not mean we're not turning into Democrats either. Good. Don't come trying to alter the Democratic Party into a right-leaning. I mean, it already, to me, is centrist waffly enough. Don't come to the Democratic Party think you're going to turn it into something more to your liking. It's the party it is, and we don't. I mean, this was my concern with Jeff Duncan, who, but by all accounts, he towed the party line while running for lieutenant governor. I mean, for governor. So if he's a legit Democrat, and I believe him, then next time he runs for something, which I would hope it would be like a state Senate seat. I mean, if you really want to help the Democratic Party, win in 2028 and in the future, it doesn't always have to be the highest office in the state. It doesn't have to be Congress. It doesn't have to be the Senate. Run for something that can help flip the state legislature. Anyway, I'm glad that Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene aren't ready to become Democrats. But Marjorie says, but we are done with the America Last Republican Party. Listen, I'm not one of these people that subscribes to the theory that we don't need to be aiding, folks outside our borders, international communities, and impoverished areas, or to work with the global health and medical community to, keep illnesses at bay. Viruses, they don't recognize borders. They don't acknowledge borders. Most of the outrage from the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the Tucker Carlsons of the world stem from this Iran memorandum of understanding that Benjamin Netanyahu is doing everything he can to ruin. I mean, you've got Donald Trump on Truth Social cursing like a sailor, mad at the Iranians for not sticking to a memorandum that Israel's not sticking to. But you didn't invite Israel to the bargaining table anyway. So what did you expect? I mean, my God, you let the Taliban come in and negotiate when we were exiting Afghanistan. You weren't going to let Israel in? And I get it. Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel under Benjamin Netanyahu's leadership is doing everything they can to sabotage a peace deal. And this deal sucks. It's a complete win, a complete capitulation to the Iranian people. I want to give you what is essentially some satire. Jonathan Pye plays a TV reporter. He plays a TV reporter by the name of Tom Walker. And he does this skit where he's doing like a reporter cut in for like the BBC or something like that. But while it's all satire, understand that like the riff he goes on is so spot on, it's not even funny. Listen to this.
More than 100 days after US and Israeli bombs began falling on Iran, both sides are claiming victory, a sign perhaps of how much both sides needed a way out. Back to you, Sophie.
Okay, and then he takes the mic off.
Thank you. It's interesting, isn't it, that Trump signed this deal in Versailles, the location of another famous humiliating total capitulation. But, of course, Trump will spin this as a massive success because he's got form in declaring he's won when clearly he hasn't. But this war was a success in the same way that paying $14 million to have large chunks of blue paint floating in an algae-infested reflecting pool was money well spent. The truth is, the United States has rarely looked weaker and Iran has rarely looked stronger, having now worked out that if anyone doesn't do exactly what they want them to, they'll just close the Strait of Hormuz and they've got the whole world by the ball bags. We went from week 1, I will win, victory will be easier than that time I kidnapped the president of Venezuela, to week 2, I won, to week 3, why aren't you helping me win, to week 4, I don't need your help to win, but if you don't help me win, I'm going to destroy NATO. Week 5, if you don't let me win, I'll annihilate an entire civilization. It's quite a feat to give the Iranian regime the moral high ground, but luckily Donald Trump shattered the illusion of American morality a long time ago.
Facts.
Week 6, we're winning, and to prove it, here's an AI picture of me dressed as Jesus. Week 7, the Pope is a soy-filled woke Guardian reader. Week 8, I'm getting bored now. Weeks 9 through to 14, really bored now, and I've got ballrooms to build and cage fights on the White House lawn to organise, and 4 months later, victory! Thank you very much. Where's my peace prize? And if the rest of the G7 can just clear up the mess and pay the bill, that would be great. The outcome was always inevitable, but, it's been fun to watch. Most of Trump's posts on Truth Social around the conflict have sounded less like the leader of the free world and more like a 14-year-old boy who's the only one left in the class not to have fingered anyone.
Whoa!
One particular highlight being on Easter Sunday, when Trump went on to Truth Social to write, "Open the f***ing straight, you crazy bastards," which are the words of a true diplomat with supreme control of the situation. He then spent some time at the White House Easter egg roll, where he gave a speech to a bunch of bemused primary school children about how he's thinking of starting World War III in Iran and Joe Biden's auto pen. But this conflict hasn't all been plain sailing. Trump got really angry with the UK and Spain and Canada, Australia, Italy. In fact, anyone who raised any objections to this gross example of imperial overreach was branded a coward. It was as if he felt like we should all be grateful that his latest piece of American expansionism didn't involve making Canada the 51st state or carpet bombing the sleepy village of Greenland.
Thank you.
Perhaps if you want your allies to be good allies, then maybe start treating us like allies. Don't bully your allies or slam illegal tariffs on your allies or interfere with their elections by overtly promoting far-right parties across Europe whilst hurling insults at our leaders and threatening to invade allied sovereign territory and then demand we come to your aid just because you started a war because 1, Benjamin Netanyahu told you to, and 2, to distract from the fact that you appear in the Epstein files more times than Jesus is mentioned in the Bible. But at least someone did all right out of this whole thing. Well, for me, the highlight of the whole shit show was the $2.1 billion in bets placed minutes before presidential announcements about the war in Iran. $2.1 billion in perfectly timed directional oil trades placed across 5 presidential announcements in a single month, which is completely unprecedented and so far completely uninvestigated. $2.1 billion. Under any other administration, this would be a scandal unlike any other in modern history. Instead, we're all completely dazzled, me included, by Trump posting AI images of himself as Jesus, or posting AI images of himself as James Bond, or the Mandalorian, or who else? A Top Gun pilot, a muscular Jedi. He likes cosplay. There's nothing wrong with that. He cosplays being a president most days, doesn't he? Who else has he pretended to be?
I love that guy. And that was a satirical TV reporter, but Jonathan Pye just completely going off. I have a message for Marjorie Taylor Greene and for Tucker Carlson. Your problem is that you've been supporting a party that honestly has only just wanted power, and a president too, obviously. Just power. That's all they've wanted. They have rigged the game so much that the will of the people doesn't matter. Hence, the popular vote in 2016, the popular vote in 2000. 2000 only got us into 2 wars that cost us trillions of dollars and tens of thousands of lives, American lives, hundreds of thousands of lives overseas. And, of course, caused some problems, down the road, ripple effects. Taliban's back in control, by the way. Instead of as I'm hearing now, you don't want to be Republicans anymore. Why don't you start espousing things that will actually create an environment for, I don't know, another political party to step in? I know they may be looking at the Libertarian Party, but Libertarians don't have much of an opportunity. No party outside the Democrat or Republican Party have an opportunity as long as you don't uncap the House. Uncap the House of Representatives. Like, I think there should be about 1,200 in the House of Representatives to meet with the population growth since the last time we grew the House. You do that, all of the states are going to get more representatives. All of them. California, Georgia, Texas, Rhode Island, all of them are going to get more representatives. Even Wyoming, I would think, would get more representatives. And what you do when you uncap the House is you give opportunities with so many smaller districts. It's going to be hard to gerrymander them all, too, by the way. There's another idea. Fair maps, like nonpartisan maps. This gives parties that are outside the D or the R the opportunity to run candidates and have representation in the House, the kind of representation that Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene want. Now, I don't believe in that sort of representation. I wouldn't agree with them. I wouldn't align with them or anything like that. But at least there would be the opportunity that would exist to give some third and fourth, maybe fifth and sixth parties an opportunity to have representation in the House of Representatives. You do that. You have fixed the Electoral College. It'll never be hijacked by a madman who happens to hijack one party, or mad woman, one party or the other. You've created an environment for other political parties now to exist and to hold each other accountable. You may even, on occasion, find where that third or fourth party could get, I don't know, a coalition of 3 of the parties to at least agree that the fourth party, MAGA, is absolutely bonkers and should be shut out. Oh, wait, that wouldn't work in Tucker Carlson or Marjorie Taylor Greene's favor, more likely. But that's what you have to do. You want to loosen the grip of Republican control? Okay, but you guys have the Supreme Court. You have the White House. You have the House. You have the Senate. All of this is happening on your watch and costing our dollars. And yeah, I get it. You're upset. You don't like the way the Iran deal worked out. We had one in place. One that the Secretary of Defense for a president you elected in 2016 said Iran was already fundamentally in compliance with. But instead of listening to the experts, your guy, the guy you elected, the guy you championed, the guy you actually actively campaigned for, both of you, twice, 3 times actually, if you count 2020 where he didn't win, you guys actively campaigned for this guy, and that guy tore up a perfectly decent deal that Iran was compliant with, only to get us to a point now where we're back to where we were before that agreement took place. J.D. Vance bragging that IAEA inspectors are going to finally get to go into Iran and inspect their nuclear program. Yeah, that was in the JCPOA that President Trump inherited when he was sworn in 2017 and inexplicably tore up in 2018. I get it. Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I've been there. I'm that person. This is me after 2016. I'm like, maybe the Democratic Party is just not the party for me. And I get it. Absent a better solution or a better alternative, they have to be. But until we have a viable environment where something other than D or R exists, then, I have to coalesce behind the Democratic Party that stands more in line with, I don't know, sanity, rationality, the fact that, there are marginalized Americans who don't have the same footing that heterosexual white folks, Christian conservatives, for example, all have, then that's the party I have to coalesce behind. And I get it. They will find their way back to the Republican Party. But if they're dead serious about this, then they need to espouse uncapping the House and creating an environment for third and fourth parties to exist in the first place. Anyway, that'll do it for the Ron Show. I want to thank you so much for listening. 8 a.m., 4 p.m. weekdays on Georgia Now, 11 p.m. Progressive Voices via TuneIn and every podcast. Show notes, as always, at RonShowATL.com. Did I get to all 3 circus rings? I think I did. Thank you so much for listening.